Hi, my name is Chris, and we're going to be continuing on disassembling this cylinder. We had gotten the piston off. It required some manpower and muscle because of all the Loctite. Now we're going to get the gland off. Okay, so that would require some strapping, and we can knock it off. So here we go. First, before we take the gland off, we got to take off this little cushion. For those of you that don't know what a cushion is, a cushion slows down the cylinder when it enters into the gland. So this way, as it extends, the cylinder slows down. And then on the retraction, the front part goes into the back cap, and that slows the cylinder down. So it doesn't slap when it goes on the extension or the retraction. There we go. So we have an O-ring. This O-ring goes inside the piston and stops the fluid from getting past and then bypassing. Okay, so it's not too bad getting this guy off. Go. Take this off. There you go. Just gonna spray a little lubricant, make it a little easier. There we go. Slide this up. Take that off. All right. Gland's off. We can take it over to the bench. You can see the seals on the inside. Actually, quite a bit of rust around here. That's the O-ring. There we go. And these are our rod seals. And you can see that they're Vee Packed. Like that, and there's a whole stack of them in there. So we'll get those out. And you can see right here, there's a bronze rod bearing. Oh, there we go. You can see how it's dark here, shiny there, so it's probably worn as well. And we'll have to replace that so it will run nice and straight and true. There's the O-ring for the gland, dry, hard. It's expected. Okay. Now we'll move on to taking the back cap off. If you guys like this content, like and subscribe. There we go. All our parts and pieces in there. Okay. Let's give this a little tap. There she is. What do you think? Pretty dirty? Now look at, now we can really see the condition of the inside of the tube. It's a pretty rough cylinder. So we're going to have to hone, clean and hone the inside of the cylinder to see if it's salvageable. This tube is in really rough shape. So that's what we're going to do next. Just going to take a wire brush and loosen this up a little bit. See how much actual rust we have and whether it's pitted the inside. Okay, I'm just going to get some cleaner fluid. Oh my goodness. Just trying to get this clean enough so I could stick a wire wheel in there, because it's so thick that it would just gum up. So let the solution sit in there and kind of loosen it up and break it down. Once I get the majority of the gunk out, then I could stick the honer in there and give it a light hone, and just to see how well it's going to clean up. I imagine with that amount of rust that there's going to be pitting. And if that's the case, we'll have to make a new tube. This job requires getting your hands dirty. Well, it's starting to look better. Yep. I'm just going to grab a drill. All right. I need both hands in order to hold the plate because it continues to spin. we can do next is clean the pieces up. Gonna lay them on the bench. Once they're cleaned up and they're on the bench, then we'll start measuring everything, checking if there's any other damage that we couldn't see because it was dirty. And then we'll start measuring for new seals and coming up with a plan to ensure that the cylinder is back to as new as possible standards. Now let's wash off all the sand, any leftover grease. These fittings and stuff are going to have to come off and be blown out because there'll be sand trapped in there. Sand gets everywhere. Let that dry off. You can blow it off and bring it over to the table. Okay, so this is a rod bearing. Sits in there. And this goes onto the rod, and the rod travels in here. So if this is worn, your rod will travel in and it will rock back and forth. So you want this nice and tight so that the rod stays nice and straight and it doesn't put too much pressure on your piston, because if the rod's able to move, then that puts pressure on your piston and it puts pressure on your seals and also puts pressure on your rod seal. So it's important. It's a simple part, but it's important. It has to fit tightly on the outside, and then it has to fit on the rod. Let me show you on the rod here. So it's on there. It moves freely. Now, if you can pull up close, you see that rocking right there? You can even hear a little click, click, click. That's too much. Because over the long distance, that little bit will actually could actually move a 1/4 inch up and down over here. So we're going to make a new one once we get approval. This bronze piece is called a cushion. And that sits on behind the piston, and it goes in here. So it has to be able to go in and out, and it can't have too much play. See that? All right, so we have to measure this to see what the difference is between this and the inside of this. If there's too much play, then it won't work. It won't slow the rod down. So that is a cushion. This right here is a seal retainer. Our seals go inside here, and it holds the seals in, and it also holds a seal inside there, which is called a wiper, and that wiper stops anything from getting on the rod and then being sucked into the cylinder. So it's just to stop contaminants from getting inside. So that's that. And this is called the gland. So it holds the seals, it holds the rod bushing, also holds an O-ring right here to seal on the inside of the tube so the oil doesn't get out. And then it's got a cushion adjuster on this side, which is basically like a needle on the inside, and it opens and closes a hole on the inside here. So what it does, it allows oil to be compressed inside, come through here, and then start flowing back at the piston. So the oil comes here, it starts putting pressure and then slowing it down. So if this doesn't work and doesn't restrict it, the customer doesn't have any control over how their cylinder acts. So it slows down at the end, and it can slow down because you have this pin adjustment to basically close off the size of the hole and the amount of oil that could pass in it. And this is just your port in which you attach your hoses to, so you can add, so your oil can enter and exit. This is the rear end cap, and the rear end cap acts almost like the gland. Has a seal here, has that needle adjuster there, and has a check ball over here. So these two are basically are similar in their functions. And then this is what we call the tube or the barrel, and these are the flange ends. Not all cylinders are the same. There's a million variations, and some will have variations of each of the things that are on here. So we call this the rod, and this is the clevis. And this cylinder is a little different because it has a flat end cap and it doesn't have a clevis on the end. You know, it doesn't have ears on it like you see on a lot of other cylinders. Here, the rod has a few features on it. Has a seal area to prevent oil from getting past the piston. That's the other part, is the piston. And this is a cushion on the end. So this area restricts in the end of the end cap. And that's pretty much all the parts and pieces to the cylinder other than the hardware. I'll show you. I think this one will probably be the same. It's so full of gunk that it actually tightens up. There we go. This one, spring's actually seized in there. You see that? Oh, here we go. That's not bad. This one's a lot cleaner than the other one. The other one was just packed full of black grease. Now inside, at the very back there's a ball. And that ball acts as a valve. And it closes off the opening, and it's when the oil pressure builds up that allows the ball to go back and allows the oil to pass. But it's pretty dirty in there, and you saw how hard it was to pull it out. It should be easy to pull out. And I think this guy's going to require a little bit of maybe heat. We'll see. I may have to tap it with a hammer. She's tight. There we go. This is the needle that I'm talking about. Get that off. There. See how it's got a little chamfer there on an angle? So this seats down into a hole, and this little end piece will actually block the oil from coming in. So the further that it's up, the more oil can come out. Further that it's in, the less oil can come into there. And basically what this is doing is allowing either more or less oil to basically travel through and bypass this cushion on the end, so that it either can put more oil onto the piston to slow it down, or it could decrease it even more to to speed it up. So it either slows it down or speeds it up, depending on how much you adjust this in and out. So if you back it off, it's the cushioning effect would hardly can be seen. And when you tighten it right up, you could see the cylinder just slow right down at the end, that it doesn't just, you know, close and smack. Because if it does that, then it causes a lot of, could cause damage over the long haul on the cylinder itself, and also possibly even on the machine that it's on, because that type of vibration or collision could cause damage. So you try to have it so that the customers can adjust their cylinders so that they do what they want it to do, and it to act how they want it to act, pretty much. So I put air into here, into a little hole in there, and the air comes in and comes out that hole. And now if I put this pin down all the way, it should close it off and air shouldn't come out this hole. That way I know that this is doing its job and it actually works. Because if it was damaged in any way or worn or whatever, it wouldn't create a seal inside that little cavity, and the air would just pass. And then if that's the case, then we're not going to get that dampening effect that we want to see. So we could test that with air. Now, because they watch this video, they may be able to actually see how it may work, because it'll just be maybe a little different, but it'll be a similar idea, and it pretty much works the same. There we go. Okay, give that a little tippy tap. Back this all the way. That way we know that we've gone all the way. Okay, so to test this, I put it all the way in. I don't crush it, but enough that there's some resistance there. And I'm going to find that hole. And I'm going to feel for the air coming out there. Lots of gunk in there. Let's get that gunk out. Okay, now I'm going to go through this way. Hear that? So that sound is, you can hear that it's closing it, and then all the air is coming back to me. So it's saying that this needle is able to go in and shut off the air. So you listen. Hear that? That's how you test that. So you can tell whether it's closing off or not. Now, I want air to come out of here because there's a spring in there in the ball. So if I put air pressure on there, it should push up against that ball in that spring and then allow the air to pass. If I put air in there and the air doesn't come out here, then something's stuck. You hear that? That's the check ball in there, dirty. So everything's very dirty, but we can tell on whether it's going to function in the end once we have everything all cleaned up. You know, if there's any pits in it, and if it doesn't work, then we'll put in a new ball to ensure that, and that it's clean. Has to be clean in there, because if it doesn't, then the ball won't sit properly and it won't do its job. So everything must be really clean when you go put it back together, because you can tell like everything is full of dirt and grime. Okay, and just kind of give a little. Okay, so, and that's pretty much how that works. Now I got to clean up the spring and clean up the ball, but we're ready to start measuring for our seals, and also to check that all our tolerances of the fitting pieces are within tolerance, so that we'll know whether they'll work or not if they're within tolerance. Okay, so Daryl's here now to do the measuring.
All right, we're just going to quickly go through this and touch on some of the more important things that need to happen before we actually go ahead with rebuilding it. So number one, we're going to start with the very simple things. We're going to measure the wiper, the OD, outside diameter, for those who don't know what OD is. Caliper. I'm using a caliper. And just get the right feel. I can already tell you that it's going to be an AN wiper, but we need to know what the size is going to be. And this is a vernier, by the way. This one. Let me know. I'm going to show our age. Okay. Okay. About 3.364, which is pretty much standard for a 3-inch AN type wiper. That seems to be fine as far as the OD. Now the width is about point. You're not going to get quite in there as sweet as you'd like to, but again, this is within the tolerance, which we will check with the wiper once we decide the exact size of the wiper. The style is definitely an AN. We are going to determine the stack height of this is roughly, this is the old Vee Pak, just to give us an idea, roughly what the stack height is, about 1 inch at 6 thou, and these fluctuates by just squeezing. Now this, also the height of the rod bearing, which is very important for the stability of the rod and the piston travel within the tube. That runs about 1.72. Most times when these come in, we change these. They get ID worn. This quickly we'll go over. We'll measure the rod. That way you have an idea of what we're up against here. Okay. The rod, as it came back, is in decent shape. She is about 2.995 or 995. So this sitting in the rod, we want to figure out what its tolerance is. So it's roughly about 5.5 thou larger than the rod itself, which gives it about 2.75 thou play. which can be acceptable depending on how this fits on the OD within this area here, which is measuring 3.488. This OD is impossible, but let me reset. Okay. 3.4985 and 3.497. So it's a nice fit, OD wise. You can see it slides in. Has to be cleaned up, but slides in. But we probably will end up replacing this simply because by the time we clean this up, it's going to open up another thou, and that's going to get us just at the top or maximum allowance what we want for our rod bushing. So make note that that will be replaced. So we went to these again, automatic to be replaced. Well, the Vee Pak is a seal that is combined with several V's. As you can see in this particular model, it has 5 V's. 3 V's usually will cover about 3,000 PSI. The reason there's 5 is probably what I'm thinking normally is to take up the space. An extra V here would be a good thing. So this all fitting inside here, giving the rod stability, and this included will give you that dimension. But this should be a little bigger than this. And so we're looking at roughly 3" and 65 thou. This should be a little bigger. It's 3" and 86 thou. That's typical because when you install a new one, the stack height will be a little more loose fitting. So initially this will be at a higher height. And the reason for that is when we do put it together, you'll have a bit of spacing here when it all makes contact. So what happens is when we get to the point where we're testing this, we leave this a little bit loose. And when installing these, they're well greased and oiled. And I'll tell you why. So when we put this in, we leave it loose. So what we want is a little bit of oil to drip through, and then adjust the tightness here to squeeze the V's, which will in turn spread and make a good seal on here and a good seal around the rod. So they can adjust that even in the field. If they find it's leaking, we give them an extra 30, 40 thou to tighten up and will stop the leak. But very important to keep these well lubricated because with the heat and the friction, these things tend to break down much quicker if they don't have the oil circulating through it. So, what else do we do? Cushions. Let's quickly get to these. Probably most underestimated and misunderstood pieces. Tolerances vary on these to their particular size. So what we want here is a tight fit, but we need to have some movement because a lot of these float as they're coming in. And when they do come in, they need to find their guide to go in and create the cushion. What happens if they don't have this bevel cut? It helps lining this up, so it guides itself in there and creates a cushion for the in this particular case, extending of the rod. There's also one here. So one on the blind end, the rod, and at the base of the end cap. So first of all, we want to know how tight this is. So let's get a measurement here. I cheated, jumped ahead, I measured it. It's 3.5.04. Just to give you a quick idea, this has to be a little tighter, like 3.49, well 3.5. So there's going to be about 5 thou clearance to create this cushion here, which is, it seems to be a good spec, because if you look out here, you're not seeing a lot of wear, you're not seeing any damage. A lot of times when these things are too tight, they get all marred up and damaged and scored. So again, this is a good indication that this fits properly. Not too loose. It was also show you no scoring as well, of course, but just enough that there is a little movement. This should work out just fine. So let's move quickly to the other end of this rod, this cushion here. I know I can't really get this to you so you can see it. It's about let me just zero that, okay? 1.6175, so 1.617, and that cushion is created by entering this area here, which is 1.625, already measured. 1.65. So that cushion is roughly about 5 thou a side. For the most part, because of the smaller diameter, there will be less oil in this area. So this cushion could work out just fine as well. There's not a lot of scoring at either end. So, and a nice taper on that to actually guide it through. So for the time being, we're going to leave that, and the best test is when we do test, and then we'll see how well they react. There's also the adjustments I know you've already gone through with my colleagues, so we'll just bypass that and not bore you with that. So let's move to piston. Piston seals and piston wear band. Super critical as well. We've measured this. This measures this in this particular 0.005, actually half a thou over, and this is exactly 6 inch. So this is salvageable. It needs a light hone as well, but when we're finished honing it, it'll just be a cleaning process, and it'll probably end up maybe a half a thou larger than it is, which is fine for our tolerance. However, this piston is about, I'm going to guess 10 thou. So, yeah, I'd say it's about 12 thou clearance, so 6 thou a side. But you can see the damage on this, that we're going to have to replace it. And when we do replace it, they wanted to be replaced with polypack seals, which are loaded use seals. So what's critical with these are, they'll probably be a 5/8 clearance, 5/8, which in fact this is 0.680, should be 0.688 clearance plus 15 thou, which would be a proper fit for a 5/8 use seal. Judging this side as well, yeah, again, it is undersized and will have to be corrected when we make a drawing for this. Pass it through engineering, and I'll send them all the specs. They'll go through it, check my work, and when they present a drawing, I will check it drawing as well, and then we'll forward it to engineering. It'll be then forwarded again, and then make sure that everyone is on the same page. And when we get to it, the machinist gets the print, the material, which I believe this is cast. Looks like cast iron, so yeah, it'll have to be replaced. And then again, we'll be looking at, probably looks like 5/8. Yeah, again, 5/8. This is too tight, but it's damaged. Yeah, and it would still be too tight. It would need a couple, several more thou clearance in order for a 5/8 by 125 wear band to actually fit properly. So again, we're just going through it, but this is going to be replaced. We're going to go with the polypack seals, which they call for on the print specified by their customer. And then the 2 wear bands will be fitted accordingly. And again, tolerance will be provided to the engineering and would be provided to the drafts people who will put this thing together. And then hopefully get a decent print and get it back to working condition. There's not a whole lot more to, that is roughly everything we need to know at this stage. What we're gonna need, we're gonna be replacing this. This is not critical, this is just acting as a retainer, holds everything together, more or less. So this tolerance, as long as it's decent, which maybe 25 thou maximum for a clearance on there is typical. And again, we'll be replacing the bronze, I believe it's SAE 660 bronze, which will be replaced, and the all seals always replaced. So size up O-rings for the ends. We will be using a caliper. What do I do after that? I make all the recommendations as far as what's going to be replaced. Chris generally goes through everything and gives me a heads up to be aware of, you might find this or you might find that, and the condition it's come in, whether the rod can be cleaned up, and it seems to be fine. So all I'm doing is trying to get that medium, and again, O-rings are pretty straightforward. So it's probably 5.784, which is fine. We use a 5 3/4 O-ring, 5 3/4 ID O-ring, which would give us a little more stretch. So being a cross of 1.25, it would be just over 6 inches and just fit in here quite nicely to seal. As you can see, it has a wider opening in the front to accommodate. So we're looking at about 6.29. So with the O-ring at a 1.25 plus the stretch here, should fit in just quite nicely and seal. Again, the best way to find out, I mean, the numbers mean the world, but until you put it on the test, that's how you know how it's going to function properly or not. Cushions as well, everything. So I think from that point, I will document all this, look up all the seals, make sure all the tolerances on the IDs, ODs, and height are accommodating for the seal that is requested by this particular cylinder. And make sure everything's copacetic before I hand it off over to the drafts people and engineering.
Hi, if you guys like this content, like and subscribe.